well, that was the last breath, and this person, their heart's not working, their breathing's not working, their body is no longer living. And then there can be gaps, and then you think, look, it's 45, because some people count the seconds, 45 seconds since the last breath, but then another breath might come. Those are the sorts of things that go on when the body is leaving this world.
The body knows how to die, but we seem to have forgotten. This is At a Loss. I'm Timothy Giles, funeral celebrant, hosting conversations around living life fully in the awareness and the presence of death, grief, loss. I'm sitting in at Mercy Hospice in Auckland. I first met you, Carol, when you stood up at a Death Without Debt workshop, and that's my massive edit of what you said is, actually, first of all, I don't even, how should I be addressing you? Is it doctor? Is it Carol? Is it Dr. Carol?
I've got a very strong preference for it being simply Carol.
Carol. And role and title, so which took you to that workshop and has us sitting here in this context?
As I say, what's in a name? I've had many roles, and while by profession I'm a doctor and have been for a long time, my current role is as a palliative medicine specialist, and I work at Mercy Hospice. And how I got to the Death Without Debt workshop is because I am part of a 3-year initiative I'm the lead for, something which we call Hono Hono Tato Katoa, creating compassionate communities. It's a bit technical, but what it is about implementing a public health approach to palliative care. And that is a bit technical, but for better or worse, I'm leading that initiative, and we're coming to the end of the 3 years. And that is all about having communities shape and contribute to and work with health services to reclaim what they used to have in terms of how to care for someone who is approaching the end of life, and before and during and after death.
What do you mean reclaim? I'm in your safe hands as a professional, and I have your colleagues around who take care of that. Thanks very much. Job done.
Yeah, but is it the job that you want done? So by reclaiming, we're really fortunate to be living in Aotearoa, New Zealand, I feel. And it's, for me, the influence of tangata whenua, very much so. When I first came here in 1979, I thought New Zealand was, I'd been living in Australia, I thought New Zealand was really another country full of what we now call New Zealand Europeans. And in a very short time, I came across something that was really quite different, which was what I now know as what happens normally for those people who are tangata whenua, their rituals around death and dying.
This question of reclaiming, what do I need to reclaim? What does, at the moment, for me, being quite separate from death feels quite safe, thanks. I'm interested in what reclamation looks like, and are we talking about caring for the person into this. And in fact, I'm interested in asking you when dying starts. And let's go back to what you said that day, please. You said the body knows how to die, but we've forgotten.
Yeah.
Now, I want to know what dying is and what it looks like. And if I look in media, I think I pretty much got my head around what dying is. It's the last breath. The breath is taken. There may be a death rattle. There may be some slightly disturbing movements of the body and involuntary things. And then the last breath, and then it's quiet repose, and we're all done. And then it's just a matter of redressing the body, and off we go and bury or burn, right?
Yeah. All right. Dying possibly starts with the first breath that we take. And some would argue dying even starts at the time of conception. Who knows? I don't know that answer. I just know dying is a huge part of living. And I check the history. I am mindful of how non-Western cultures often do things in a different way. And the history is that dying used to be all in the community. The history includes times when if someone was in a hospital and they were identified as going to be dying, so I'm now talking when the body becomes frailer and things like that, they were actually discharged from hospital because they were dying, and they went back to the care of community, to priests or whoever the faith-based communities were, and the care went on there, and it was a community event, and the caring went on for however long it went on. The person would take their last breath, and the care and the rituals would continue after. And there would be, in that whole experience, and I'm not trying to romanticize it, but those experiences were sitting within community. And what has happened with Western medicine in particular is that the professional approach has come in, the health system has come in. We are all about cure when it comes to palliative care or the end of life. We're applying science to it. I say science, it's a bit of inverted commas around it. And we're focusing on comfort, pain, symptom management, those noisy secretions at the end of life, things like that. And in that, we have said that we doctors and nurses, we're the professionals when it comes to dying. All right? But in fact, we're only one part, a tiny part of a person's whole living and dying. And we, in palliative care, it's holistic care. Dame Cicely Saunders talked about total care. She talked about social care, what's happening for the family, what's happening in the non-physical realm, in the spiritual realm, in the body realm. It's all of that. All right. So with time, what has happened is we've overtaken that. We say, particularly in palliative care, that we provide holistic care. We look after the family, we look after spiritual needs and cultural needs. But we can't, and we don't, and we can't do it all. And the best people to look after the caring actually happens outside the health system. Health professionals come. So what's happened is with time and with many other social changes as well, communities, and I use that in a broad term, have lost the confidence and the skill and the capacity to do the caring. However, what happens at the end of life, and even before the end of life, is so poignant that when it's not a good experience, and it's often not a good experience when its health system is dominating in it, it creates future experiences are not good as well. A good experience, so I'm now talking about intergenerational impact. And in short, the health system puts forward itself, particularly palliative care, as we're the experts. We're only expert in one little bit. We need community. We need social systems, its families. If you look at the amount of time have been some work done that people in their last phase of life, and it's probably a number of months, only 5% of their time is with health professionals. The other 95% of their time is on their own, with the families, with the dog, with the computer, with friends, all of those things. That's where the caring goes on, in the preparation for death. And it can be quite lonely if you don't have these connections. So I've wumbled a bit.
Not at all.
I haven't got onto the rituals around
No, we'll get there.
after death.
I've just looked at your face and it troubles you, this, the clinicalization, and I'm guilty of it. I'll just hand it over to the medical professionals. You're the experts in death, and you're saying, no, 5% at most, thanks. The rest of it up to us. But it actually troubles you.
It's troubled me for a long time.
Now, you said you've been doctoring for a long time. I mean, how many decades approximately are we talking?
Over 4.
Okay. And in terms of around palliative, how long have you been?
Oh, I'd say the same number of years.
Okay. Now, what's troubling you about it? I mean personally, because I understand what you see of the vision of a community where people are engaged, and we'll talk about that a little more. But you personally are not that happy.
No, I'm not. I think, and I can talk best from being a doctor, and I'm generalising, but it's just my feelings. I think doctors and I think medical science has done heaps. I think it's really magic. All right? I just don't know that it's learned how to step back and respect nature and to change the focus as we're not just bodies and physical beings. We're a lot more than that. I see people as they come towards the end of their life, still going for blood tests, using up their precious time to do things that we doctors think need to be measured and done. And we think it's in their best interests. We haven't stopped to say what matters to you most. And sometimes people will say, well, I can't come to that appointment or something because my granddaughter's coming, or because my grandchild is going to graduate, or they're just actually got a new job and I'm going to go and see them this afternoon. So those things don't seem to have a place in how some doctors work. And I've probably worked in that space as well. So prior to being palliative care, I worked in general practice, living in the community and seeing what really goes on and seeing what really matters to people. And there's only a little bit of it can be looked after by doctors and nurses. And I think we just dominate a bit much. We put our priorities ahead of perhaps where the patient and the family are. The person is dying. They only do it once. There's no practicing this.
Well, there is actually.
Is there?
Yeah. If I have watched those in my family or my community who have died before me, and I'm involved, that's practicing, isn't it?
It's experiencing.
Okay.
It's an experience which will be poignant, and you're practicing in your life as an observer or as not the person dying. You're practicing how to care for someone. You're practicing, oh, hey, that didn't work the last time. I'll do this time. So that's you doing the practicing. But the person who's doing the dying, no, they've only got one chance at it, usually. We know that some people have near-death experiences. And
Carol, I've never thought about this before. That dying is a task. It's an experience, a challenge, a thing that I'm going to have to do.
You are, one day.
I've never thought about that before. So, how do I do it well?
Well, that's possibly for philosophers to answer rather than a doctor. There are many faith evidence-based systems in our world, and I follow none in particular because I get confused. But some would say that how to die well will be determined by living how you live. I've heard from seasoned nurses in general practice when I remember a gentleman who lived on his own. He had been a soldier. He'd done a lot of walking in Egypt. He said, my feet have walked a long way. And he'd see me, and then one day I was told he's died. And what had happened was he was at home and he was found on the floor, and it looked like he was heading off to put his porridge on for the morning. And the practice nurse that was with me at the time, she said, well, Carol, he lived as he died, and he died as he lived, mid-step. His feet had walked a long way, and that was him. And just a little capture of, do we die as we live? And in how we live, does that impact how we die? I have a feeling it does, myself. And how we die, I think, from what I see, is not just what the body does, because the body does know what to do. It does know how to shut down. It's got its way. It's got its way of starting up when it's born or when it's conceived. It knows how to shut. It'll do it by itself. And so how we die is in part affected by how we think and feel and have thought about it, or how we live through our relationships or our lack of relationships. There's been, a number of years ago, I'm a training doctor, and my boss said to me, well, Carol, we're going to have a few people, I'd like you to do a session on what is a good death. So it would be in the 1990s, so I looked into the medical literature about what's a good death, and I've followed it ever since. And from my point of view, it's just the wrong adjective. Good is not an adjective to go with death. A good death from whose point of view?
So what adjective do you choose?
I haven't replaced it with another adjective yet.
You're just recklessly going around ripping down established practice and belief.
Oh, not me. I'd never do that. All right, okay, I tell a fib. I never succeed in ripping down established practices, but I am someone who asks questions about them. And one of the things that I prefer instead of a good death is a natural death. Whatever a natural death is, all right? So a natural death for me is a death which, in the context of that person, is natural. So it's not caused by external forces. It's timely, and it's not determined by age. All right. So some people say a parent should never lose a child. That's not an unnatural death. It might be a natural death. And so I don't look for a good death. I think about allowing natural death. Yeah, I think that's...
So what I'm hearing is you're removing a value judgment from all good or bad, right?
That's a nice way of putting it.
That's what it sounds like to me. And what you're moving into with natural is, and I love that you use that example you did, because I am guilty of that conversation of the child dying before the parent. But it can be the way things are. And now, it's a challenging experience,
it's massive.
but it's not wrong.
No, it's not. And the actual...
Whoa, you've blown my little mind away. Okay, yeah.
And the heartache in a parent losing a child, for me, is beyond the capture of words. Okay? so much of what I see is beyond words. And that's where I've got admiration for artists, for poets. Poets use words. So it's not a comment about the immeasurable grief, all right? But allowing a natural death, if a death is natural, and allowing, and we can do things to make comfort. Putting comfort in there is absolutely part of something that I think is important and worthwhile and is compassionate.
We being doctors and nurses, we being
people.
Okay.
The people around the person who's dying, all right? So it's not...
What comfort have you seen that is effective and works? So, I mean, I immediately went to, okay, comfort. I'm sitting with a doctor. I'm thinking about pain meds. I'm thinking about that. But that's not what you're thinking about.
It's not only what I'm thinking about. I want to have pain meds and things sorted out. I want everyone to have that opportunity. I'm talking about comfort. During COVID, so many things went on that were really so bad. However, one of the things that I noticed was people can be admitted to an inpatient unit, hospice bed or hospital bed, for control of symptoms. Let's say bad pain or difficulty with breathing. All right. So what happened during COVID is people, for lots of reasons, but if they had a choice, they would choose to be with their family rather than in an inpatient bed where they couldn't have access. They would choose to, that's what became more important. The pain of not being with their family, the pain of the loss of possibility of communication exceeded all other physical discomforts. So that's why I want to take good out of it. It was a natural death, and for that person, it was as good as it could be for that person, and they prioritized. They didn't prioritize our drugs. They didn't prioritize what they needed from the health system. It's all gratefully received.
What did they prioritize?
They prioritized what mattered to them most.
And the things that you've seen that matter and bring comfort, and almost a perfect experiment of all these things taken away in COVID, right? And then now you're back in an environment where you can reintroduce a whole lot of things because you've looked at, when that wasn't there, that was discomforting. So family, people connection is one. We've got the meds, we've got people connection, access to them, being around them.
It's the things. It might be a pet.
Okay.
Sitting on the bed, lying on the bed. It might be a phone call. It might be hearing birds sing. It might be looking out over a paddock at the stock that's there. It might be going to the beach. It's so different, but it's not just controlling what the body feels physically. It's just a lot more. It's a lot more. And so my critique of my profession, which I have a lot of respect for and admiration for, but my critique is that we sometimes miss what matters to the person. Yeah. It is really hard to put into words.
There's a lot about having people around. People are scared. I remember the first time working as a funeral celebrant, the first time I went into a hospice to meet a client. And I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know what was going to be appropriate. I'm meeting someone and we are talking about what I'm going to do when they are dead. And it's not far away. We don't know precisely, but it's not far away, right? I didn't know how to behave. It's actually been some of the most rewarding experiences I've had, and some of the most powerful conversations I've had. I didn't say much. I pretty much listened, walked away, having grown so much. If I'm going to be around someone who's dying. And you spoke about the process of dying. It might take months. I was thinking, oh, you're dying. It's a matter of hours to the last breath, quiet repose. That's not what dying is, it seems. What is it?
We know that there's more of us who live in this world with dementia. And in the process of that, some people would feel that a bit of their personhood is dying. All right, it's going away. It's shriveling. It's going away. And then I think about the actual last breath that we take. And that process, sometimes there can be no indication that this is the last breath. Normal breathing and then stopped. Sometimes there can be a changing in the pattern of breathing, which is determined from deep within the brain. And there's increasing gaps, and there might be what looks like a big sigh. And the interesting thing is, you don't really know which is going to be the last breath until you've given it time, all right? And then medically, there are ways we can monitor activity that's going on in the brain before and after that. And there are some faiths that believe that the dying happens after the last breath. So I live in a world where there's so much uncertainty and it's so hard to pin down that a conversation about dying when I'm working professionally is always, will you tell me what you feel and think and know about dying? And then I can actually do something with that conversation and try and sort out which bit the person is worried about or wanting to plan for or wants to anticipate or wants to understand for the person who's in front of them. So when it comes to what dying is, for me, it's always a conversation with the person who wants to have the conversation.
Okay. Me being present when the dying occurs, what am I going to see physically, though?
You'll see there's a range of possibilities. So there are physical signs that go on. Usually, there are always exceptions. I've learned that in my work. There are always exceptions. Usually there is progressive, if it's all natural death and it's due to something which has been anticipated and the body is shutting down, the person will be frailer, the person will be weaker, may sleep a bit more, may need assistance with eating and drinking, may lose the strength to eat and drink independently, may lose the drive to eat and drink. Usually the last thing to go is drinking, and then no, they're not interested in that. There's skin changes, so the skin becomes quite pale. There can be some mottling of arms and legs. The feet and hands can go cold. So that's the circulatory system, the blood system sort of shutting down. There can be as you've talked about, the noisy breathing, what's called the death rattle, and that is natural secretions in our breathing system and in our airways, which we no longer have the ability to clear. We're not coughing or something like that, and they gather. And that can be often managed by repositioning. And the level of consciousness of the person, that will come less. They'll be a bit further away from us. We've got good reason to understand that even for someone has had impaired hearing, that hearing can become more acute. And so I just always assume that people can hear, and that's possibly the last sense to disappear. The thing that often, if we're sitting with someone who is taking their last breaths, the thing that we often get guided by is their breathing. And people will count the breath, or there'll be a rhythm, and that's why there are quite a number of patterns of how the breathing shuts down, from no warning to just, well, that was the last breath, and this person, their heart's not working, their breathing's not working, their body is no longer living. And then there can be gaps, and then you think, look, it's 45, because some people count the seconds, 45 seconds since the last breath, but then another breath might come. Those are the sorts of things that go on when the body is leaving this world.
So how do we register when death has happened? You've talked about the way that clinically you can measure various things that are reducing, shutting down. I'm interested in the point at which you say, okay, they're gone now.
Yeah.
And then the body's still got work to do.
It has got work to do.
And it does stuff.
And it does stuff. It carries on. It knows what to do all by itself.
Can you tell me about that?
About the body knowing what it has to do. I'm probably not the best person to talk about that. You know, nurses are probably nurses and people and end-of-life doulas and people in the community, who are with the body afterwards will know more about it. Because there are processes. We hear about rigor mortis, and that's why there's a wish to place the body, if it has been misaligned or in a funny position, to make it nice and straight and straighten the limbs that can be straightened if they can. So there are lots of processes that go on.
Okay, I'll respect that then, and I will go and I'll catch up with the doula. So Teresa Gallagher I've spoken to before. I'll go and thank you, Carol, for steering that in that direction. I'm quite moved by this conversation, and you spoke about us being more than what the clinical skills and expertise are of, I'm a walking bunch of symptoms, can we manage them, please? I'm a lying down, slow-moving bunch of symptoms, manage them, please. And that's been your professional fascination and your skill. And then there's other bits, the social bits, the places where there are meaning, the enjoyments around it. So this is what the reclaiming is about, where others come in and say, thanks, doctor, don't need you right now. Can we get into the 95% that doesn't involve you, please?
I think you put it together really well. I like that. And at present, this is happening for a friend of mine and his family. And today there'll be some decisions, and I know that they're poised to say, thank you, doctor. We're going home now. We don't need you at present. And he himself is contributing to that decision. And home they will go. I will catch up with them this weekend.
As a friend?
As a friend. They don't need me in any other way.
How nice for you.
They might talk a little bit about, he's on this medicine, he's on that medicine, and I'll go, yeah. And what matters to me is what he thinks about it and what they feel about it.
Sorry. What? What does that mean?
Well, I could have a conversation which go, I shouldn't be on that because it's actually, kidneys aren't working very well, and I actually would recommend a lower dose. And actually, I'm not sure if the doctor's actually thought about such and such and such and such. I think that would be better for this particular symptom because, the doctor's prescribed hasn't seen this. I could have all these thoughts going through my head. But that's not what matters at that time, unless there is something that is really outrageously wrong.
Okay. You said, I could have these thoughts going through my head. You will have those thoughts going through your head.
I will. They'll be there. But they don't matter for...
So what matters?
So what matters is... What matters is being with the family that are reclaiming it. They care deeply. They're doing what matters in a safe way, because they've actually called us in, and they know how to get hold of their doctors if they need them, that they've got the time to do whatever they want with this time. It can be apologies, it can be love, it can be just being together, it can just be doing the normal things, having the dog jump up on the bed and having the clatter of the dishes in the background, that they're coming to an acceptance that everyone's working to what is inevitable, and that they've reclaimed that space. They're not in a hospital having a blood transfusion and watching the person who matters a lot to them take his last breath.
The benefit of not being in the hospital to being at home for you is?
Variable. So you're laughing.
I'm laughing.
All right. So when you and I first met, which was at that Death Without Debt workshop, I didn't know what I was going to say, but I told a story, and I'm going to tell you the story again. So I was a very young doctor, round about a few months old. Well, I mean, I was in my 20s, but I'd only been a real doctor, supposedly, for a few months. All right?
Okay.
And this is in Australia where I trained. And so in comes a lady, and she's in her 80s. And I'm working in it was then called a geriatric ward. And she had only just been out less than 24 hours. And I'm going to call her Elizabeth. And she came in, and it was my job to go and find out what the problem was, get her notes, get her details down, find out symptoms, work out a plan, make sure that she was not allergic to anything, things like that. And it was a 4-bedded ward and behind curtains. And it was her daughter who had brought her in. Her daughter was in about her 60s. And her daughter apologized for needing to head back. This was before mobile phones. I'm talking about the early 1980s. And she had to head back to her children and things like that. And was it going to be all right? So I go and I pull back the curtain and I open it and I introduce myself and I say, Elizabeth, and she puts up her hand to silence me. And I go, right, okay. And she says in a short voice, look, now don't ask questions. I'm dying, and I'm going, no, what's this? I'm a bit lost for words. I don't know how to manage this situation. And she says, look, don't worry, just stay with me. And I'm thinking, I'm feeling a bit bewildered at this. And she does something to reassure me, and I think, all right. So I go outside the curtain, I get a chair, I bring it back in, probably a stool, and I sit with her, and I have to think, look, she's really quiet, she's looking peaceful, and I say, no, I'll go and get your daughter. No, don't worry about my daughter. She needs to go home, and this is where I need to be. All right. I say, are you sore? I ask about pain, and I said, not sore. I ask about breathlessness. Is there anyone else you need to speak with? And I've got all these questions going through my head. Is this okay? And what ensued was probably over a period of 20 minutes. She just reassured me that this was okay. And I'm thinking, oh, this is not okay for me being a doctor sitting here, but she was reassuring me that it was okay. And she died very naturally, very peacefully, no symptoms, didn't need anything. And except she needed to be there, and she wanted someone to be there with her. So I can even feel my heart beating fast now, because I can remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to go out and tell my registrar and the lead nurse that this lady's died. That's not supposed to be what happened. So I do emerge. I stay with her a wee while after she's died, and I do emerge from the curtains and go and speak to my registrar, he's really quite a good guy. And he looks a bit shocked, and so does the nurse. However, he knew that this lady had had heart failure, that she'd been in and out of hospital a lot, and I had done nothing wrong in the big scheme of things. but I hadn't done things right according to the hospital requirements. Fortunately, I was looked after. The nurse and my registrar sorted out things. Nothing came of it for me. However, this is a rather long story for your question about dying in hospital versus dying at home. Sometimes a hospital bed is the place to be. For this lady, that was what was important. She needed that safety. She knew of it. She said, I can't be at home. I can't be at home. And it turned out that for her daughter, that worked out all right as well. Her daughter was very stressed. So
that balances
not black and white.
Your friend, who you are absolutely supportive of, the, okay, doctor, thanks. Bye now. Going home. And family gathering around. And they are now in charge. And that's balanced by Elizabeth. What I notice in both stories is, yeah, for you. You're sitting there with Elizabeth, and I'm wondering if you've got better at that experience now of, oh yeah, this person is dying.
Yeah.
You've clearly got better at the, I'm just going to be Carol friend now, not Carol doctor.
Yeah. And you're quite right as well, because Carol doctor is so imprinted in there that if I see something unnatural happening and I'm thinking, this is not okay, this person's been given the wrong dose of drug, or there is some bleeding that we can stop in another way, rather than just letting this happen, I will pull out my doctor hat and do something about it, because that's not natural and that's not good and it's not necessary.
And that's in extreme circumstance?
That's in any circumstance.
Okay. Yep. But you work hard to silence that before it gets to that point of, this is absolutely not okay, something needs to happen. Okay.
And the older you get, the more you can discern when something needs to really be acted on. And
because you've seen it?
Because you've seen it and experienced it, and you understand a bit more about the alchemy of time.
The Alchemy of Time?
Yeah.
That sounds like a prog rock band's name from...
Oh, well, why not? So I think the younger I was, the more reactive I would be. I would be fearful of a death happening in front of me. And my very first death was that. It happened in front of me, and it had happened before I had no I had no contributing or pre-death experience, but it happened in front of me, and I'm thinking, this isn't okay, and I really wanted to go and speak to someone really quickly to see if I should be doing something, which I couldn't. And so I think the alchemy of time lets you feel things a bit more, and you can start to discern, yeah, this isn't okay. Something needs to be done. Or, this is okay. Yeah.
It can be messy, it can be a little confronting or a lot confronting, but still be okay, and to go back to your term of, it might not be good, but it's natural.
Yeah. There are some things that are really messy, some things that are really confronting. I have images of them, and they are as they are. Some births are exactly the same. Yeah.
My daughter's birth, the obstetrician passed out. Things weren't going well.
The obstetrician passed out. That's not a good sign.
It wasn't a good sign. They both survived, so that was good. Not the obstetrician. I mean, my daughter and her mum. Yeah.
Yes.
At the other end, then, and this is, you spoke about Dame Cicely, the founder of hospice, right?
Right.
And she'd said a death as natural as a birth. But some of the confronting things, that's probably another conversation on, is it a conversation that ought to be had at some time? Is those things that, if we're going to reclaim death, do I need to be ready for that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's another conversation to have another. Sounds like a trigger warning advisory recommendation on that conversation. Yeah. Okay. here is the end of our conversation. Thank you for all of this time. And I know you've got wards around you, and I see people racing around in the corridors here. And I've got two questions for you before I project what I've taken away from this time with you, Carol. I wonder if, and you get to think for a minute or two whilst I meander through my reflection on this conversation. One is, I'm curious of what your message is to other doctors, because it is quite challenging to be okay with a situation that you have outlined of saying, I am just 5% of this experience, and that involves being okay with, prepared for, and even inviting other people with none of my clinical expertise to say, step aside now, doctor. And I'm curious on your conversation with other doctors on how to get there and how to be there. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that. And the other thing for me is a reflection on just this conversation. Beyond just the cognitive, it's an energetic conversation. And I just wonder if you had any reflection on that, which is what I'll give you now while you completely ignore what I'm saying and think about doctors, right? Which I'm not used to people ignoring what I say. Carol, you have said, go talk to a doula. You have said, not me, nurses. I admire that. I admire the way that you sit comfortably within your expertise and acknowledge, allow, and invite the space for others. So thank you for that. Why will you... Okay, we could do so many conversations, and I'm wondering, and a question I didn't get to was why you would keep choosing this, and here's the answer that I hear from this conversation before I shut up. And it seems to me that you are profoundly engaged in this work. You clearly, after decades of doctoring, have a large capacity for complexity and learning and for application of knowledge. But you also, it seems to me, are utterly absorbed in what is the social elements around a natural death and a death where we can tend to it and have someone die naturally with comfort. And you seem to be fascinated in the psychosocial elements, the psychology of it, the socialization, the emotional management, and what is the spiritual. And I'm not a particularly spiritual person at all, but I'm interested in energy. And I wonder if those two are different windows to the same chapel. I don't know. And it seems to me that your fascination, if I was going to answer the question I didn't get to ask you, is that you seem utterly absorbed in the mysteries and the challenges that are in your work in this field that go beyond symptom management and application of medical science.
Oh, well, this could just be the beginning of another very long podcast, couldn't it? You've given me way too much to think about. For me, there is mystery. As I've been fortunate to have been present at quite a lot of births as well. More deaths than births. And I get a sense of awe on both of those things happening. There's every time someone dies, there's something that I use the word magic or mystery. There's something that is phenomenal. And I feel uncomfortable about how the health profession, not just the medical profession, have inserted ourselves in there as perhaps having the skill and the experience. And in so doing, we have diminished so many things, and we've become focused on the body. I think for as long as forever there's been human life and even animal life, that caring goes on. We see animals, when they're aware they've got some of their mates dying, they do various things as well. So it doesn't have to be so hard, but for some reason, what feels to me like over-medicalization has made it much harder. It doesn't have to be this hard. We have got a place, and it's a very valid place, and we can do good things, but it's not the only place. So I'm going to go back to your first question, which was about what do I do, how do I interact, or what do I say or tell? I don't like to tell anyone anything, believe it or not, even though it looks like it. Doctors about this. I love working with doctors. As doctors, you can find yourself in a position that you haven't anticipated. And if it's around death in particular, that really hurts hard. So what I would ask doctors to do, my colleagues, and I do, is if they come across something like that, to find a place, a person that they trust, that they can debrief with and talk about it and reflect. That is the quickest way to understand your own discomforts and to understand what's going on. So that would be one thing. And that there's a lot of growth in that and a lot of humility as well. We do have to confront ourselves as well. So it's talking about it. It's really lovely to give a colleague who is not familiar with their patient in front of them heading towards a death and they can't do anything. And just being a sounding board for that person, saying, you're okay, you have done everything you can. You are now actually doing what really matters for the patient, and you're navigating that, and you're on track. It's okay to stop monitoring this. It's okay to take this medication away. That's how I like to work with my colleagues, who I respect because I need them to do everything else that they're doing. Yeah. And sometimes I think unintentionally the health system makes it more hard for a family than it needs to be. And there's one other thing I ask of colleagues, and that is to trust the patient and the patient's community. We as health services don't trust community. We can't control the people in this other person, in the patient's life. But we look and see what they're doing, and they're confusing things. They're thinking of other medication and stuff like that. But to trust and work with a patient's network, a patient's family, a patient's community that they name, to learn how to trust that as okay for the patient. Unless, of course, there is intentional harm and intentional neglect. Those we shouldn't trust. If there's violence, even if it's verbal violence, we shouldn't let that happen. But most of the time, that's not happening. So I'd ask my colleagues to start to learn how to trust the patient and the world in which they live. And die. Because I think we die as we live. But, I should have left it last word with you, and die. Yeah.
This is At a Loss. I'm Timothy Giles, funeral celebrant. If you've enjoyed this conversation, or if you haven't, and you wanted to give some feedback or make some suggestions, at aloss.nz is where you can find me, and Giles, Giles, at aloss.nz. I know with the email address, I didn't really think the website thing through with two ats. Giles at aloss.nz. Carol, thank you. I'm going to go talk to a doula. I'm going to go well, listen to. Find some nurses, right, to have a conversation with. And when you have some time, let's come back to that conversation of some of the challenging stuff that people might need to be prepped for if we're going to reclaim.
Thank you.